Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snark. I'm making my way through Born at Midnight by C.C. Hunter. If you haven't seen the other videos, you might want to do that before jumping into this one, or else you might be confused. Links will be posted below. Chapter 22. As the reoccurring theme in this book is turning out to be, the mysterious figure who shows up is Lucas. Although he poses his desire to talk to Kylie as a question, she can't help but note that he neither waits for an answer nor does he give her a choice in the matter. She allows him to pull her away from most of the other kids at the camp, but puts a stop to it when it becomes clear that he wants to take her into the forest. She might not be the brightest, but she's not stupid enough to want to be that alone with him. And she's still holding the disappearance of her cat over him. Lucas asks what the deal with her and Derek is. He also calls her out when she says that she and Derek were just talking. Kelly also can't help but note how mature that his body is. Ugh. When Kylie apologizes for having interrupted Lucas's makeout session with that girl, he says that it's about the FRU. He says that he's upset when she says that she doesn't know what they wanted, but she elaborates that she literally does not know. He says that the FRU guys being there is upsetting Holiday. This prompts Kylie to tell him that nobody knows what she is. And, oh my god, this book will not freaking shut up about how hot that Lucas is. I feel like we're being hit over and over by the author with a brick that says, "He's hot. We get it. Move on, please." Kylie goes off to find Helen, which she does. Derek had already warned Helen that Kylie would want to talk to her, so they start to try and find someplace quiet that they can go. But Helen said that she doesn't know how she found out about her sister's tumor. They were fighting, and it just sort of happened. Helen is kind of amazed that Kylie can't do the mind-reading thing. Helen kind of describes the way that she reads people, and it kind of sounds like a weird form of synesthesia, where she looks at people and sees colors and sometimes patterns, but Kylie is different, although Kylie says that she's not trying to be that way, and she doesn't know how or if she can even control it. Helen again insists that she doesn't know how she realized that her sister had a tumor, but seems to think that holding Kylie's head might help. As Helen does so, Kylie worries that somebody will see them and assume that they're lesbians, which I feel is probably the least of Kylie's concerns right now, but whatever. Helen exclaims that it's working and that she can see something, and rather than to be afraid that she's got a brain tumor, the only thing Kylie can think of is that she's going to have to buy a wig because she doesn't want to be bald, because priorities. And the chapter ends like that, because nobody bothered to tell the author not to end literally every single chapter on a cliffhanger. Chapter 23. We skip over Helen actually telling Kylie yes or no and go straight to Kylie meeting up with Miranda and Della in the cafeteria. She watches as Helen comes in and figures that Helen must be telling Derek that there's no tumor, because nothing quite like weird secondhand information when Helen could have literally just said yes or no. What is this even? Why all of the drama and secrecy over something like this for not even a quarter of a page? And then Miranda randomly mentioned that the camp is going to put computers into every cabin, because the plot hasn't brought up how this camp isn't like other camps in a while. And I can't believe that I actually just said that, but here we are. One of them mentions that Perry was looking for Kylie earlier, and she's just annoyed, although they seem to think that Perry wants to apologize for his actions, which dude should probably be a registered sex offender, but sure, an apology would be nice. Kylie goes to get lunch. The elf who drove the kids up to camp is serving and says that she can't see the ghost following Kylie, but that she can feel his presence. Kylie screws her eyes shut and thinks really hard, "Go away," until she feels the presence of Soldier Dude leave, which, it's only stupid if it doesn't work, I guess. She then goes back to the others and complains about the tuna sandwich, which, girl, be thankful that you're even eating anything at all. She swaps with Miranda, except that there's a weird enchantment over Miranda's PB&J sandwich that makes it seem like it's dripping blood. Why is beyond me, but here we are. Kylie thanks Miranda for the sandwich. Miranda says that in exchange, Kylie should put in a good word for Derek, since Kylie doesn't seem to like him very much. This leads to a bizarre argument between Miranda and Della over if Kylie does, while she's literally sitting right next to them. The girl who was seen making out with Lucas earlier randomly comes to sit with them, because reasons. Her name is Frederica, if anybody is interested, which I know that I'm not, especially if she's going to be used in the same way that Trey's arm candy was in the second chapter. And then Kylie randomly starts choking to death on some peanut butter before Della thumps her on the back and dislodges it, which, okay, was any of this really necessary? Anyway, Frederica wants to kick Kylie's bottom because I always want to beat up people who have shown zero interest in my boyfriend. Is that normal or just me? But Kylie frightens Frederica off by greatly exaggerating the number of ghosts that hang around Kylie. She also implies that they would help Kylie if there was a fight. But Kylie then says that not only does she not want Lucas, but every time that the two of them have had a conversation, he always came up to Kylie and started talking, not the other way around. Frederica isn't convinced, but she leaves anyway. Then Kylie brings up something Miranda mentioned, the Death Angels. Miranda mentioned it to Kylie on the bus on the way up to camp and again just now. But we're going to end on that note, which, while it is a cliffhanger, is not as annoying as all the others have been. This is a natural stopping point before we dive into a new chapter. Chapter 24. Kylie asks Holiday about the Death Angels, and then the narration screeches to a halt for a brief second so that Kylie can inform us about Sarah again. Kylie set her phone down on Holiday's desk and took a chair. When she'd left the dining hall, she'd spent the last 5 minutes talking to Sarah, celebrating the fact that her pregnancy test was negative, but now Kylie was back to focusing on her own mission of finding answers. I'm honestly really over this book's back and forth, almost ADD way of writing. We were already setting off from the chapter's plot station, and then suddenly, BAM! Sarah! Was I the only one who remembers a lesson from, first grade where our teachers told us not to write like this? Holiday thinks that Kylie's questions about all of this means that Kylie is now accepting the fact that she is what she is. She also mentions Helen checking Kylie for a tumor, although that part comes from Helen wanting to share her excitement in figuring out how her own powers work and telling Holiday. But Kylie is convinced that while she's ruled out a physical ailment, it's still not discounting the idea of her actually being mentally unwell. Which is going back to my earlier issues with Kylie's therapist. If the lady actually thought that Kylie was something more than human, she should have said something and helped guide Kylie down this path of discovery, not to practically order Kylie's mom to ship her off to camp, and now both doctor and mom can wash their hands of Kylie for a few months. It's awful behavior from a so-called professional, and I have no idea how this lady manages to hold on to her medical license. Holiday then redirects the conversation back to the idea of Death Angels. She says that she personally hasn't seen them, although a lot of people have. She goes on to say that many think that the Death Angels are just legends, but in the same breath says that people still think that vampires and werewolves are legends. But a lot of this goes into the same reasons why people are so afraid of ghosts, even when they're a witch or a vampire or whatever. Holiday continues on and says that a lot of ghosts just simply need something from those who can communicate with them, but some have been known to offer a sort of protection. She also won't stop flinging around the word special to the point where it's honestly starting to lose all meaning. Kylie asks about the lunch lady elf, and Holiday explains that others are a bit more sensitive towards ghosts and spirits than other supernaturals. Holiday also muses that the way that Kylie was able to sense that Holiday was changing her emotions earlier, and that it might mean that Kylie is a fae. The word God is also flung around a lot. It makes me wonder if the author really wanted to write her own version of Percy Jackson, but figured that the market for deity-related summer camps was taken and decided to take a crack at a supernatural thing instead. Holiday says that while the species have been intermingling for a while, as Miranda explained earlier, there is no way for two species to interbreed. So, sorry guys, no where vampire babies are going to be running around. She also says that there's no way to genetically test to see what anybody is. The best she can figure out is that this is a case of something being in Kylie's family line and it skipped a couple of generations. So we've got 2 pages of content about what Kylie might be, and it's taken us exactly nowhere. We are a car that is stuck in mud, spinning its wheels, but unable to get out. Kylie then goes to her art hour, where she's partnered up with Helen and some vampire named Jonathan. They were tasked to all draw the same thing in nature. Kylie wanted to hike down to the falls, but the others refused, so they drew a tree that had been struck by lightning. Then they go on a hike, which Kylie almost ditches when she realizes that Lucas is in her group, but then she decides against it when she realizes that Holiday would probably get angry with her if she didn't go on the hike. Although she's quick to realize that her worrying was for nothing because while she was doing her best to ignore Lucas, he was also ignoring her. Kylie's just disappointed that Frederica isn't there to see how much that she and Lucas were ignoring one another. As she walks along, she notes that Miranda is a huge flirt and is openly flirting with all of the other guys in their group, and she reminds Kylie a lot of Sarah in that regard. But this turns her thoughts towards Trey. He called again while she was doing art, but Kylie hadn't even messaged him back. She felt like Trey was going to have to take a backseat towards her figuring out her own identity. As they walk, Lucas explains that they found dinosaur bones in the area in the 1960s. When Kylie asks if there are still bones yet to be dug up, Lucas gives a super disinterested response. This prompts Miranda to say that she doesn't know what Frederica was talking about, Kylie trying to take Lucas from her. As Miranda talks about Frederica, something suddenly occurs to Kylie. However, if you're expecting for her to share with the rest of the class, fat chance, it's going to have to wait until the next chapter. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. If you enjoy my videos, please hit that subscribe button. I post a new Snark video every Monday. Don't forget to check out my other videos, Snark of Stalking Jack the Ripper and The Plan. If you've already seen those, then you can head over to Tumblr for my main book Snarks. And if all of that is somehow still not enough for you, then you can become my Patreon supporter for just $1 a month and read a bunch of bonus Snarks that aren't up anywhere else. See you next week, guys. Kylie goes to get lunch. The elf who drove the kids up to... Do we really have to? Which is going back to my earlier...
Knock it off!